forces come in. So when you talk about opportunities, what aspect of five forces are we talking about really? Like when we say opportunities, what aspects of the environment are like, especially from the five forces, which ones are important to you if you want to look at the opportunities? Anybody wants to jump into that?
Do you mean specifically with the Alibaba case?
No, in general. What do we mean when we say opportunities and threat? Which of these five forces are we mostly referring to? Opportunities, mostly. Like when you get opportunities, what are we talking about? Mariah?
Do you mean like an opportunity for that company to grow and to expand?
Yes. Jarna?
I was actually thinking about it in terms of the Alibaba case because I remember it saying that Alibaba has an opportunity for sort of like a Facebook equivalent because Facebook is, I guess, illegal in China, if I remember that correctly. So Alibaba now kind of has this sort of like leisurely opportunity to sort of excel in that opportunity and that for the market.
Let's not go into Alibaba yet. I just wanted to conceptualize what I'm asking here. So I don't want to go into Alibaba yet. But I want you to think in terms of what we mean. Like, let's say you have five. What are those five forces? Buyer's power, supplier's power, library, new entrants, substitutes, correct? So when you look at your environment in terms of opportunities, which of these forces are you referring to? Mostly. Luan?
Would it be the potential new market entries?
That could be a threat too. So in terms of opportunities, unless you have a partnership with them, it might be more like a threat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hello?
Would the opportunities be the suppliers, like the people that use the platform and sell their items on there?
Yeah, I mean, resources. Yeah, I mean, it could be opportunity is a resource, definitely. What else? Johi?
I think maybe companies could lessen the impact of substitutes by working with them or doing some sort of a merger acquisition deal.
No, I don't think, I mean, the question probably is not clear for you. So let me go into the, these, for example, these environmental characteristics like demographic, sociocultural, political, legal, technological, economic, global. When you think about opportunities, you're also thinking about who? You're thinking about the buyers, correct? The buyers. So you're mostly interested in your external, when you scan your environment for opportunities, you're thinking about the buyers, the market. And the market has its demographic characteristics, its sociocultural characteristics, which could work as an opportunity for you depending on the type of product or service you are going to offer to the market as a whole. And then you can have the rest, which is economic, global. These could all work in your favor if you happen to see them in the way that you want to, organize your planning. And here, when you look at the demographics, you have so many things that are under the population aging, or the mid-size, like their age, average age, rising affluence. It's an opportunity. Changes in ethnic composition. It could be an opportunity depending on, again, the type of product service. So geographic distribution of the population. So where it is more located, where you see more like population size and volume kind of concentrated in which areas, okay? And then some disparities, like some income. People sometimes might have more disposable income than the others, depending on the geography that you are. Like China, for example, in the latest decades or so, has increased this middle segment, like the the how can we say, like the middle class, like they kind of enlarge it, and they even have more people in the upper middle now, which means you have more people who are able to afford like the services and products that you're offering them. So when we say opportunities, we say all of these things working in your favor or not. If they are not working in your favor, then they would work against you. That becomes a threat. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does it make sense? So you need to look at the 5 forces in terms of these. Let's look at this chart here. Where does the opportunity lie? Where does the threat lie? And here you see potential entrants could definitely be threats, as well as substitutes. Let's say 3D printing just came along and people start to scale it. Now 3D printing is everywhere. So your manufacturing business is at stake because of this substitute emerging. And then let's say, you have a new supplier decided to do forward integration, which means that they are actually trying to sell through themselves. Let's say you are a retailer and the supplier decided to do their own thing without you. So that's a threat. So depending on how you're looking at it, each one of these things can be a threat or an opportunity. But mostly, from a most obvious example, buyers could always be approached as opportunities and sometimes threats. And suppliers could be opportunities. But rivalry, unless you are a monopoly, unless you are trying to be a country which is trying to go into free trade modality, rivalry could be a threat to you. Okay, increased rivalry. Sometimes from a country perspective, it brings a lot of traction into the businesses, a lot of varieties, and people start to compete, and that competition actually helps the industry grow. But for you as a company, increased rivalry is becoming a threat. Okay. So that's why I wanted you to think about how SWOT and then the 5 forces can intersect sometimes with these opportunities and strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes your strengths, if they couple with the opportunities, that's how you attain your competitive advantage. It becomes sustainable because you're able to, it's like a key and a lock, like they kind of interlock, right? So when you have that strength that matches the required opportunity, and then there's a demand for your services and you're able to do it really well, then there is this match. And from this match comes your profitability, and your business could really grow and expand to levels that you haven't imagined before. Like Apple did this, Tesla did this, yeah, right, Netflix did that. There was a demand, they had a strength, and they met with that, and then they used technology here as a resource. So it kind of, they went into it right on from, they were on the target. Anything you want to add to this? So whenever you are studying, you're doing your case analysis, guys, and maybe we can do a little repetition with the case analysis components today too. Try to look at these forces very closely and carefully, and make sure you identify what are some of the power associated with the buyers, what is the power of suppliers, and you always come up with a conclusion telling me it's weak because of these. So always present an evidence when you provide something like a claim. Like, let's say you believe buyers' power is very high now in China, then tell me the evidence, give me the evidence. And the evidence in your case is very important because you might need to come up with figures that you find from elsewhere. And I already told you that Baruch library, or for the first time, maybe only time, you can use web resources. But on your second case, probably I will only need you to stick to Baruch library resources. Okay. So please try to understand each of these forces. And whenever you come up with let's say a conclusion, make sure you show evidence for that. Just don't say, I believe substitute power is really medium in this case, and then don't leave it that way. Just try to please Give me evidence why you think substitute power would be medium. Yeah, you can use, yeah, Jahid, I mean, to your question, you can use web resources for the first case, which is Pixar, but on the second case, I'm asking everybody, because the library, we will receive some workshop with the library from Professor Louise Kusek. She's going to come to our class, tell us how do we use the library, and then you will be able to use the resources. Yes, you have to touch on each of these 5 forces in these cases. Usually, like the concentration, the 5 forces in the first case. On the second case, I believe it's only the internal environment. So make sure you, like, every case has its own focus point. So for the first case, which is Pixar, you will touch upon the 5 forces mostly. I don't know about Factiva really, but as long as you cite your sources, I'm fine with it. Make sure, again, you support your claims. No, you don't have to present it. No, you are just submitting it as an essay on the Blackboard. No, you will do presentations in the end with your company research and your Globus results. And you will have a chance to work with the Bernard Communication Institute with that. And you will have a chance to rehearse with them. And I want you to sign up as early as possible whenever they come and present to us in March. Please try to sign up with them so that you gain you polish your presentation skills as you present, because presentation skills don't develop as you listen. They only develop when you do more presentations. And it's important to be concise, to the point, to cover related points only on a presentation rather than tell us about everything. Okay, we will talk more about that. Okay, how can substitutes become an opportunity? That's a great question. Anybody wants to address that question? That's a great question. If there is a substitute, it's okay there, no problem. If there is a substitute, how does it become an opportunity? When price of one substitute goes down, Jahid says buy the substitute. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could be sometimes. But anybody else has any thoughts about a substitute can become an opportunity? Diana?
I think in this case, you can, after the substitutes emerge, you can see what they're doing. And since you already have brand recognition and your own customer base, you can also like offer the same product as your substitute and see where that takes you. And I think that's going to be a really great opportunity for you as well.
Anybody else? Jason?
Yeah, you can set up your marketing in such a way where your entire strategy is based off of explaining why you are better than the substitute, so you can focus on the substitute's weaknesses. Yeah.
Let's say you have a long-term view of your business where you are not only considering, like, let's say you have different business lines. And let's say in one of these business lines, there is a substitute emerging as a threat, obviously. But what you could do, maybe we will find out more about this in our discussion of the internal environment, but let's say in your value chain, you are able to incorporate that substitute into one step in your value chain. Let's say into your manufacturing plant. Let's say into your marketing effort. Let's say into your customer service someplace. Then it's a very much advantage. But again, it depends on how enlarged your business might be, how long-term you're planning your businesses, and how many different business units you have. If you only have like one piece of business like Blockbuster, and there's no other venue through which you are offering your services, then Netflix can come along and wipe you out, right? Or let's say you are Sears and you didn't really plan on your online business. You didn't plan on your, let's say your e-commerce business enough. And then Amazon comes, Walmart comes, and you're wiped out. So this is what it is. like, for example, we already know during the pandemic, some of the stores of TJ Maxx, they were closed and they couldn't do business through their brick and mortar stores. But what happened was that because they already had their online business set up and their warehouses and fulfillment centers ready to go, they were able to, strengthen that line of business. And, the brick and mortar eventually opened. But in the meantime, they were able to direct their, efforts to their online business. That's why it's important. Remember, I mentioned you about being ambidextrous. So a business, uh, the more angles it has, without diluting the brand so much, without like spreading too thin, the more like different ways of catering the services, accessibility. Think about, like, remember, Porter also says like variability, needs-based, access-based, differentiation there. So make sure you are able to tap into customer needs, maybe through different ways, so that you're able to create that, revenue generation, no matter what the circumstances might be. Uber Eats during the time of pandemic, because people started to order food home, Uber Eats became more important than Uber itself. But Uber Eats came, and it was a separate business line, although they were using similar value chains. And we will learn about that more. I know you might be looking at me, value chain, but they are using similar resources to produce the similar outcomes. So what they do, although that's a different type of business, Uber Eats, they were able to leverage that. Yeah, I'm sorry to say, Barnes and Noble, I don't know if you still see brick and mortar Barnes and Noble anymore. Do they have it? I know they had it on the Fifth Avenue, but I'm sure it's closed by now. Is it closed? I'm not really sure. I haven't been to Manhattan for a long time, and I haven't visited. Although personally, I would love to visit Barnes and Noble still. They still have that one at the Union Square. Okay, I mean, maybe they will leave one or two, but obviously, if they're not able to create a new business model where they could leverage their space for some maybe co-working kind of, or let's say, I know they have Starbucks inside that people can relax and have coffee and, skim through the books. But still, I think unless they find a new edge, they might be. I mean, I know there was one in my corner here in Edgewater, and now it's replaced by Michael's. Like, I think they did that 5 years ago. They already replaced Barnes and Noble. So unfortunately, yes, Victoria's Secret. Yes. Why do you think maybe my female students or even male students, if you're interested, why do you think Victoria's Secret, why did they lose traction? What do you think? Anybody wants to say? Jarna?
I think a big thing was with size inclusivity and just sort of representation in their advertising, and just a lot of other companies sort of were trailblazing in that they were showing different types of women, different types of people, whereas Victoria's Secret still sort of had this like supermodel brand.
And the sizes were limited?
Yeah.
I see. Because I'm not a really regular, I haven't been a regular, I don't know like too many people being a regular customer. That's why I wanted to know your opinion on that. Okay, you wanted to say something, Mara? Okay, Brianna?
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with whoever just spoke, because I feel like now there's a lot of change towards more body positivity, and I know like other brands such as Aerie, their underwear and bra line as well, and they emphasize on that a lot, and they have all different sizes, women, and all that. So I think that Victoria's Secret just didn't change with the times, unfortunately, and that was really detrimental to their success.
Interesting. And Daya, do you wanna just say it, because you're sending as a, oh, you just click on your name and you press everyone in meeting on the chat. Just, do you see a little arrow next to your name on the chat? You just click on it and then click on everyone so that it goes to everyone. But do you want to say it in words, or do you have internet problem? Anyway, Mariah, go ahead. Oh, you don't have audio. Okay, it's okay. Mariah.
I was going to say the same thing. And also I remember Victoria's Secret, their CEO or someone higher up said that they didn't want to have any transgender models part of their line. So I know they had a lot of backlash for that. And that's kind of when they started like going downhill. And then when they did come out with their curvy line, people they didn't really take it seriously because they kind of had no choice. Either they had to include a curvy line or they were going to go bankrupt because a lot of people didn't like how the CEO approached the situation.
I see. So these are these are good information. So from a strategic standpoint, then guys, like now you're providing a lot of good information there. From a strategic point of view, which force was more influential on their current situation, do you think? And we look at, let me share my screen again. So when you see here for Victoria's Secret, for example, which force was more important, or which forces? So entrance, potential entrance, buyers, but also what else? What else do we have? Buyers and rivalry, of course, yes. Because now in retail and fashion, we see so many players, in place, and whenever somebody loses some kind of traction, there's always somebody else who is replacing them and who is trying to come replacing and their business model and their product lines. So when you think about these examples, please think about, in terms of how those forces are influential, which ones are more influential. In Victoria's Secret case, we see a lot of, like, on the buyer side, they were not able to tap into the needs of the market really well. And the rivalry was very strong coming after them. So that's why this was happening. And Barnes and Noble, what do you think the problem with Barnes and Noble might be? Some of you already said about like problem with Barnes and Noble. What do you think might be the forces there, the Barnes and Noble? Diana?
I think it's just that because they're selling mostly like physical books, they're gonna go out of fashion because like I barely see anyone actually read a physical book nowadays. And so I don't think they should be wasting time on expenses like rent and salaries to their employees when they can just run a website from which they can still sell those like websites, but it will be much cheaper just to keep them in a storage rather than have an actual like retail store.
What is Amazon and ebooks for Barnes and Noble? Luan?
Would the ebooks and the Kindles and stuff like that be a substitute? Okay. And that's because it's electronic, right, and not paperback, so it's kind of like a whole new.
Yeah, that's a substitute, and at the same time, the Amazon would be rivalry, right? It will be the big rivalry there. Although Barnes and Noble also has a .com, but somehow I don't think they were able to gain as much power as Amazon. Claudia?
I also think it's the conveniency of digital books where people could find books more easily than actually in the stores, and people don't want to go out of their way just to go to the stores to look for what they want rather than just search it up on a computer.
Yes, and usually the inventory is rather available, like when you go and search the book and you immediately find it, it's like the accessibility of the product has been more important even than the variety of the products. And no matter what your space might be, the more space, even though you have like really huge space in a location, you cannot really hold that much of an inventory that Amazon does or your online platform might be, because they just list the names and they have specific locations, and they could even connect with a bookstore to find you the book. So it's easier for them to hold the inventory versus when you have the physical location. And right now, as you said, the buyer has changed. So the dynamics with the buyer has changed a lot. Okay, you're saying I like to read function, website is outdated. Amazon started for books, correct? Amazon actually started just with books, and then they stole everything. Barnes and Noble is an ebook section, but they have established themselves as a physical bookstore, and they haven't really focused on their online presence as much. That's the thing. They weren't ambidextrous enough. So they are doing the same thing with the other countries we discussing. Yes, who has online presence but didn't capitalize on it? Definitely, definitely. So this is mainly what I'm talking about. And we will talk about this even more in time, Steffi, that's correct. Uh, so, but again, what do you think about the future, guys? Just, and I'm gonna go into Alibaba for your group work. What do you think about the future of these bookstores, these brick and mortar bookstores? What they could do to stay alive, do you think? What are some of the things that they could do, even though they still want to keep the business location, business model, but also they want to create an online presence? What will be a promising way of, looking at the five forces again around you? What would be your recommendation for a bookstore to stay alive and to be sustainable competitive advantage? Steffi?
Hi, Professor. I believe that they need to become more than just a bookstore, because going to the bookstore only, I guess, as a reader, serve the purpose of acquiring something to read. I feel it would be more appealing if they transformed it more into an atmosphere. Like, you don't just go to get a book, you go to enjoy a reading, or you go to enjoy a reading with somebody else. More like an experience than a shopping task.
Definitely. I mean, they have to think about what we need, and I'm sure, like, even like after the pandemic, what do you think might happen with people's habits, guys? That's an important thing to consider. Like, as a bookstore, you still have some locations which could be valuable, which you would want to keep. And let's say this is because the cases are dropping sharply. I hope this is not something temporary, but I'm reading, maybe you're reading on the news that, like, because of the vaccination and because of lockdowns, probably the COVID cases are kind of dropping down. But I hope this is not transient. But let's say this is over in 6 months, let's say, or by the end of this year, it's like going back to normalcy a little bit. What do you think would people prefer to do with locations like this? So these are some of the predictions that you might think about when you think about the consumer base. Okay, but again, like, think about, I mean, I will leave you this with this question because it's important. You might come back to in different class. People are really bored of being locked down, right? People, especially your generation, are sick of it. And although you go out sometimes, it's always limited, like the spaces, the places. I'm sure there's this concern about COVID, and not all of you enjoy it the same way that you did before the pandemic. So let's say after the pandemic, what might change, and is the company ready for that change of user? Because the more you predict the user preferences and customers, both in the online and the offline, the more like profitability might be on the horizon. Um, that's why consumer behavior is so important. That's why researching consumers is so important. The market research is phenomenal. So that's why you need to think about these options. Events, probably events, uh, and some other, like, what do people miss doing? I know a lot of people miss going to offices, and some people are already working as freelancers, part-timers. And yes, WeWork is an option still, I think. I'm not sure what their numbers are currently, the WeWork as a company. But like, let's think about these things, like after the pandemic, what might happen, because to be able to be ready for that change in consumer preference, if you're the first or second at it, that means you're going to be very successful, because you know what they will select, what they want to do, and such. Okay, now let me put you into your groups. I will do probably 2 sessions, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we will come back and discuss what we found. If you want to sketch something, you want to do a PPT in this class, that's great. If you want to put down just one slide of 5 forces, this is what we see. When you put the 5 forces in Alibaba, try to also tell me the strength of the force. Like, you might also come up and say, I think the buyer power is here very low. This is the reason I'm thinking. This is the evidence. And you stick to the case for now. You don't need to go ahead and do a search in this limited time, but stick to the case. And then I think the supplier power is very high, and this is the reason we are thinking that supplier power is high in this case. Okay, any questions before we go? I'm sure many of you, I'm counting on you that you have read the material before you come to class. I'm trying to send you some reminders. I know sometimes some schedules conflict and you may not have, but try to please, come to class having read the material, so that we don't lose time with trying to catch up. Jahid?
Yeah, so do you want us to create a PowerPoint, or can we
No, you can.
just
If
read?
you want to show me in the end,
Okay.
if you want to show me this is what we see, this is what we see landscape looks like, this is where we see the power is, and what the strength of that power might be, you can always show me with some depiction, but you don't have to do that. Okay. Perfect. Now, I'm going to start the breakout rooms, and we are 27. So let's say four breakout or 5 breakout rooms, or 6. Okay, 6 or 7. Yeah, let's do 7 breakout rooms. I'm going to visit the rooms from time to time. Please ask me any questions if you have, and I visit your discussion, and I'm going to be there briefly. So please make sure if you have a question, ask, or if not, I will just shift to the other room and then come back if my time allows. Okay, you will have first 10 minutes to decide around the case, maybe to discuss what you think the powers might be, and then on the second part you might try to depict it. You might try to come up with some conclusions about, like, your group conclusion about where